Hello YouTube family, Carl Baldassarre here, back with a very special presentation on one of my favorite rock albums of all time. And in learning all the riffs on this album, it's even better than I remember. It's the band Deep Purple, and the album is Deep Purple in Rock. It was released on the 5th of June, 1970. It was the fourth studio album by the band, but it was the first time that what they call the Mach 2 lineup was in full force, and that lineup included Ritchie Blackmore on guitar, Ian Pace on drums, Roger Glover on bass guitar, John Lord on keyboards, and Ian Gillan on vocals. It really is one of the most famous versions of the band Deep Purple. Now this album is so special to me personally only because I remember when I first heard the song Child in Time, which is the third track on this album. It was the same day that I also heard the song Heartbreaker by Led Zeppelin. And that was really an important day as my older sister came back from college and played a bunch of vinyl that she just was introduced to herself. And my world and life changed ever since then. So let's get into this great hard rockin' album by Deep Purple called In Rock. Okay, for riff number one, the album opens with the track called Speed King, and this is one high-octane riff. Let me play it for you. It's quintessential Ritchie Blackmore, Deep Purple, perfect fourths. It goes like this. The way Speed King comes out, it's almost like they're trying to make a point in terms of the way they kick the album off and the sound and the energy. And I think maybe they were, because actually when they formed, they spent the first year working on a project by John Lord and Ian Gillan called the Concerto for Group and Orchestra. And that was a concert where Deep Purple performed with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra at the Royal Albert Hall in September of 1969. And it kind of kept them away from getting in the studio for almost a year. Rumor has it that Ritchie Blackmore wasn't a huge fan of the project, but he agreed to do it, provided that when it was time to go back in the studio and cut the first album, that they were really gonna go full-on rock album. And man, this track, Speed King, really gets you off to a great start. Okay, for riff number two, we go to track number two. The track is entitled Bloodsucker. This is my favorite song on the album. I just love this riff, this chromatic run. There's a little fiddly bit in it. I'll show you what it is, but let me show you the opening chromatic run to Bloodsucker. That riff is so frighteningly cool, and I just love how tricky it is, actually. It's not the same going up and down. It's a little different. Do you notice it? It's not. It's those kind of little details that makes this riff so cool. Figure number two on the track Bloodsucker is also just incredible. And in fact, I think for me, this album has the most riffs pound for any Deep Purple album, bar none. So let's look at figure number two for Bloodsucker. It goes like this. There you have it, Bloodsucker. Okay, for riff number three, we're going to the track Child in Time. Now this track really is sort of the signature, iconic Deep Purple track, primarily because it has all the virtuoso elements of the band members, including Ian Gillan's beautiful vocal range, Ritchie Blackmore's explosive, memorable guitar solo in the middle, and you've got Jon Lord's wonderful organ intro with the great percussive organ sound. All of that kind of became this signature deep purple sound. And this track is a little unusual for the album because it is rather truly composed as opposed to just being built around one riff. It's a fantastic song. I want to play you a couple of the rhythmic figures on the song Child in Time. That rhythmic figure for Child in Time is called the bolero, which is a Spanish dance figure that's been around for centuries. And in fact, it became quite popular to hear that in both jazz and rock music in the 60s and 70s. In fact, I did an episode on Joe Walsh's greatest riffs because he used a bolero figure. You might want to check that out because I go over the history of the bolero. Now in Child in Time, the use of the bolero is setting up and setting the stage for Ritchie Blackmore's wonderful melodic guitar solo intro, and that goes like this. And of course, that solo prelude gives way to the galloping rhythm, which goes like this. So there you have Child in Time. And although this album is really not known for having great songs, truly that is one of the great rock songs of all time. Okay, side 2 of the album opens with the track called Flight of the Rat. And we have riff number 4, which is this relentless power chord riff from Ritchie and Jon Lord. And you really get a sense of the kind of the competitive aspect of the band, where you really often see Ritchie kind of versus Ian Gillan. You see Ritchie versus Jon Lord. They're all trying to one-up each other. This track is not unusual in that regard. Let's take a look at the opening riff to Flight of the Rat. Of course, leave it to Ritchie Blackmore to give you one of the most knuckle-busting little turnaround licks of all time. You can hear Ian Pace in the background just kind of keeping time on the hi-hat while Ritchie does this wicked, wicked open string sort of climbing figure on the guitar. I'll do it really slowly for you so you can hear it. I had to practice that quite a bit to get it and to get it up to speed, but basically he's just alternating between two strings going up and down picking. So down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And it's wickedly fast. Yeah, and then you have to add in. Put that together, knock that up in tempo, and you'll get there. All right, for riff number 5, we have the track Into the Fire. Now this is a big lumbering riff, and what's really cool about it is that they play all 12 tones of the chromatic scale in this song. Pretty remarkable to have a piece of music that's going to have all 12 of the possible notes of Western music in one song. Let me play you this killer chromatic opening riff to Into the Fire.
into the fire.
Isn't that incredible how you have all 12 tones in music in this song, all played on the E string? Leave it to Deep Purple, man, to really do chromatic runs on steroids. Into the fire. In keeping with the heaviest riffing album in Deep Purple's catalog, we come to riff number 6, which is the song entitled Living Wreck. It's a brutal song, both in terms of the storyline as well as the sound. There's a lot of percussive rhythmic playing coming from John Lord and Ritchie Blackmore. Get a lot of chicky chunk going on. It's really, really cool, super pentatonic, really heavy. Let's jump into Living Wreck. So after that great opening riff, they get into the verses, and that's where all that kind of percussive playing is happening. You got Ritchie kind of chunking away. It goes something like this. And what I really especially love on the track is how they turn it around with this, again, kind of that percussive playing, but Ritchie is climbing up in these thirds, tertian movement. Sounds like this. Livin' Wreck, what an incredible track. So now we come to the 7th riff and the last song in the second side of the album called Hard Lovin' Man. And in typical Deep Purple style, this song actually opens with what sounds like an ending. Deep Purple would often have these big downbeat chords that you would normally end a song with that they'd use to open a song. Check out how they open Hard Lovin' Man. So after that fantastic power chord intro, he goes into this incredible galloping rhythm technique, which is really unique to Ritchie Blackmore. It was kind of metal picking before there was heavy metal. This album was really important in terms of foundational sort of guitar playing, and Ritchie Blackmore's laying down that gallop beat in Hard Lovin' Man. So that brings us to riff number 8, and you might say, well, wait a minute, there's only 7 tracks on the album, Carl. That's true. But actually, when the band released the album, the record company said, we don't hear any radio hits on this album. Go back to the studio and give us one more kind of radio-ready track. They came up with this next track, which is called Black Night. And they did it yet again with another great guitar riff. Again, this album is the quintessential Deep Purple guitar riff-oriented album of all time. As I said, my favorite rock album of all time by Deep Purple. Let's take a look at the really cool riff to Black Night. So there you have it, Deep Purple in Rock, one of my favorite rock albums of all time. It's been so great to be able to go through all these iconic guitar riffs. It's even better than I remember it now that I've had to learn how to play these guitar riffs. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I want to thank all my subscribers, want to welcome my new subscribers. Please remember to like and share, hit the notification bell so you're getting all of my content. And if you hit the super thanks button, we really appreciate that as well. It really helps us keep the channel going. I'm Carl Baldassarre, and we will see you again. And it actually is sort of one of the, all right, okay. Right, here we go. Not the least of which is that I don't know what I'm about to say, but I'm going to try to say it with such conviction that you won't know it. Yes. Sorry. Oh, no, sorry. Oh, sorry. And it's sorry. Sorry. Okay, sorry. 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 Ritchie really, sorry. Okay. Flight of the, sorry, open, plucked, sorry, not so, sorry. I mean, isn't that, sorry.